In the silence of the desert, one man vanished from the world, a haunted past and a heart that refused to heal, until the storm brought her, wounded, wild and falling fast, a broken bird and a broken man, both trapped by what they couldn't forget. Then came the stranger, with secrets, and a question. Can trust heal what pain tried to bury? She dared to rise again, and so did he. Through fire, memory and flight, the past would no longer hold him. Sometimes the one you save is the one who saves you. A retired military pilot was ready to give up. Then a Falcon crash landed on his porch. To fly again. First, you must fall. The wind howled through the canyon like a ghost remembering a name. Captain Elias Monroe sat alone on the edge of his weather-beaten porch, a chipped mug of black coffee in his hands. The desert stretched before him in hues of rust and gold, the silence broken only by the occasional whisper of sand brushing across the rocks. It had been nearly 10 years since he left the military. 10 years since the crash. 10 years since the nightmares began. Now the only battles he fought were the ones inside his head. His home, a solitary cabin nestled deep in a desolate canyon, was chosen for a reason. The isolation numbed the noise. No neighbors, no questions, no reminders of what he once was. Just sun-scorched cliffs and wide-open sky. He barely flinched when the storm rolled in. Dust storms were part of life here. They arrived like angry spirits, coating the world in a suffocating red haze. He'd grown used to them, but this one was different. The wind screamed louder, the light vanished faster. And then came the thud. Elias turned sharply. Something had slammed against his porch door. He reached instinctively for the rusted pistol hanging by the kitchen wall, but froze when he heard it. A screech, not a human cry, but something raw and primal, struggling. He opened the door cautiously and blinked into the swirling grit. There, crumpled against the base of the porch steps, lay a bird. A falcon. Its feathers were splayed in every direction, caked in sand. One wing twitched awkwardly, the other hung limp. Its eyes, fierce and golden, locked onto his with a look of pure defiance, even in its pain. Elias stared. The bird didn't plead, it didn't whimper. It simply lay there, wounded, breathing hard, waiting to see what he would do. Maybe that's what made him decide. That stubborn look. That refusal to beg. He knelt, slowly, gently. "It's all right," he muttered, voice rough from disuse. "I'm not gonna hurt you." The falcon flinched but didn't flee. Carefully, Elias slipped his hands under its trembling body, cradling it against his chest. Its heart beat wildly, rapid, terrified. But it didn't strike out. As he carried it inside, he felt something unfamiliar stir within him, something he hadn't felt in a long time: purpose. He cleared off the kitchen table, laying the falcon on a folded towel. The old first aid kit from his flying days still sat beneath the sink. Shaking fingers opened it. Years of emergency training came back in a rush. Clean the wound, assess the damage, stay calm. The wing was dislocated, maybe broken. Not beyond saving, but it would take time. The falcon watched him the entire time. Not trusting, not afraid, just watching. That night, Elias didn't sleep. He sat by the fireplace, eyes on the bird, while outside the storm screamed. By morning, the falcon hadn't moved. His breathing was slower now, more even. The worst had passed. For the first time in years, Elias felt like he had company. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel entirely alone. Days passed, and the storm became a memory. Just another layer of sand on the canyon walls. Elias named the falcon Asher. It meant hope in a language he barely remembered, from a place he'd once flown missions over. Hope seemed like a cruel joke back then. "You don't need to." But she was already unrolling a compact sleeping mat near the window, unpacking her gear with the ease of someone used to wilderness living. For the first time in years, someone else was under his roof. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like an invasion. It felt right. The next morning dawned with a pale silver light that spilled through the canyon walls and into the cabin like spilled moonlight. Elias sat at the table, sipping coffee, listening to the hush of a world slowly waking up. Asha preened her feathers slowly with more energy than before. Her eyes followed June as she scribbled notes in a small field journal, occasionally glancing at her makeshift splint. "She's healing faster than I expected," June said. Not looking up, Elias nodded. "Tough bird." June smiled. "Peregrines usually are, but this one, she's different." "How so?" "She shouldn't have survived the storm, and she shouldn't have landed here." She paused, eyes meeting his. "But she did." Elias didn't answer. He didn't know how. They spent the day in an uneasy rhythm. Elias fixing a section of the roof damaged by wind, June boiling water and checking the falcon's wound. They spoke little, but their silences were no longer heavy, just quiet, companionable. By late afternoon, Elias found himself watching June as she coaxed Asher to stretch her wings slightly. The falcon obeyed, wincing but determined. He recognized the look in her eyes. He'd seen it in the mirror, pain tempered by will. "You said you're tracking birds for research," Elias said as he leaned against the doorframe. "Why come all the way out here?" June's hands paused mid-motion. "I go where they go. This group's been monitored for years. We release them after rehab and track how well they readapt. Aisha was one of our success stories, until the trackers stopped moving." Elias nodded. "I know about that. Being released, trying to readapt." June's gaze softened. "You were military, right?" He didn't ask how she knew. The way he moved, the way he scanned the horizon, the edge in his voice, it was obvious to someone who paid attention. "Air Force," he replied. "Fighter pilot? PTSD?" He didn't answer, didn't need to. June nodded as if he'd confirmed something unspoken. "My dad was Navy, submarine officer. Never talked about anything when he came home. Just drifted away from all of us." Elias looked out toward the horizon. "I tried to forget. Didn't work. Some things don't go away," she said gently. "But they don't have to own you either." He turned his eyes back to Asher. The falcon now sat taller, her breathing steady, watching them both. "She trusts you," he said. June smiled. It took a while. When she first arrived at the rehab center, she wouldn't let anyone near her. "I get it," Elias muttered. "Takes a while to let people in." They fell into silence again, but this time it felt like shared ground instead of distance. That night, June cooked, some strange vegetarian stew Elias only half liked, but he ate it anyway. They sat by the fire, listening to the desert hum outside. Asher slept peacefully, feathers ruffled, head tucked beneath one wing. "I didn't expect company when I came out here," Elias admitted, staring into the flames. "You mean me?" June asked. He shook his head. "Her, the falcon. She showed up like a message." June's brow furrowed. "A message?" He nodded slowly. "That maybe I'm not supposed to disappear." The fire popped and crackled between them. June didn't speak, just watched him with a quiet understanding that didn't feel like pity. "She brought you back," she said finally. A little, Elias chuckled, but it caught in his throat. "She's not the only one." For the first time in a decade, Elias slept deeply. No dreams, no sudden wake-ups in cold sweat, just rest. The next morning he woke to birdsong and laughter. June was outside, sitting cross-legged on a boulder, her walkie-talkie crackling with static as she checked in with her team. Asher was perched nearby, wings slightly extended, catching the early sunlight like a queen. Elias stepped out into the light, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The world felt different, lighter, alive, and somewhere deep in his chest, a part of him stirred that he'd thought long dead. By the fifth day, Asher could stand without trembling. Her injured wings still hung awkwardly, but she had begun stretching it slowly each morning, testing its strength. The dullness in her eyes had given way to alertness, fierce, focused. Elias found himself drawn to her more than he expected. Each morning, as he sipped coffee, he watched her silently, feeling as though she were watching him back, not like a pet, but as an equal. Another survivor. June had begun logging more than just a Shaz condition. Her notebook now held records of temperature changes, wildlife sightings, and notes on Elias's cabin, a place she called an unexpected haven in her tidy, looping handwriting. She didn't hide her fascination with Elias either. "You fixed her," she said one evening as they stood beneath the stars, watching Asher rest near the porch. But I think she's fixing you, too, Elias smirked. Is that supposed to be poetic? She shrugged. Call it what you want. But she showed up right when you needed something to care about again. He didn't respond. Not because he disagreed, but because it scared him how true it sounded. The next day, June suggested something radical. Let's get her to fly. Elias nearly choked on his coffee. She needs to start trusting it again. She could hurt herself worse. Or, June countered, she could remember who she is. They set up a soft landing area in the clearing near the cabin. Layers of blankets and pillows, a ring of padded branches, anything to cushion a fall. Asha was hesitant at first, hopping instead of flapping, clicking her beak in frustration. She's afraid, Elias murmured. Then we wait, June said. So they did. They waited for the wind to die down, for Asha to lift her wings again on her own terms. And late that afternoon, as the sun spilled gold across the desert, she did. One powerful flap, then another. She didn't take flight, not yet. But she rose a few feet, hovered and landed softly. It wasn't much, but it was everything. Elias felt something leap in his chest. Joy, relief, awe. Maybe all three. Did you see that? He said breathlessly. I did, June whispered. She's coming back. Later that night, Elias pulled a photo from a drawer. An old, worn picture of his squadron, smiling faces, arms slung around each other's shoulders. The last day before it all went wrong. He stared at it for a long time. And then he did something he hadn't done in years. He lit a candle. For them, for himself. For the pieces of a life he'd buried beneath silence. The next morning, June announced she'd contacted her team. They want me to bring her in. If she's strong enough, we'll do a full exam. Maybe prep her for re-release. Elias nodded. That's good. But his voice was tight. June noticed. You okay with that? He looked at the Falcon, who now sat on the porch railing like a sentinel. She doesn't belong here forever, he said. She's got skies to own. June smiled. So do you, he raised an eyebrow. Not literally, she added, but this place, it's not a prison. Doesn't have to be. Elias didn't answer. Not yet. That evening, as the sky turned violet, Asha flew again. A longer glide this time. Clean, strong. She landed on a tall rock, turned and looked back. And Elias, standing below, whispered to himself, You're ready. But the question now wasn't just about her. It was about him. Asha's departure was set for the next morning. June packed her field gear methodically, checking and rechecking every strap, every latch on the travel crate. She moved with the quiet efficiency of someone used to goodbyes. But Elias could see the sadness tucked beneath her calm. He stood beside the crate, silent. Asha had flown several laps around the canyon that morning, her wings strong now. The hesitation gone. She circled once above the cabin before landing gracefully on the roof, as if to say, I'm back, but I won't be staying. She'll be fine, June said, watching him closely. She's ready. You made sure of that, Elias nodded. I know, but his hands wouldn't stop clenching. June stepped closer. She's not leaving everything behind. She'll remember you. Birds like her, they don't forget kindness. He gave a soft, humorless chuckle. Not used to being remembered for kindness. You should be. They loaded Asha gently into the crate. The Falcon didn't protest. Her golden eyes were sharp, calm, almost regal. She didn't thrash or screech. She understood. Elias crouched beside her for a moment, resting a calloused hand against the wire mesh. Thanks, he said quietly, for not giving up, for sticking around, for reminding me. Asha blinked slowly, and in that moment something passed between them. A wordless truth, two broken things, briefly whole together. As June secured the crate in her jeep, she turned to Elias. Come with us, he froze. What? Just for the ride to the center, see her off, meet the team, get out of the canyon for a day. I don't leave this place. You can, if you want to. Her voice was gentle, not demanding. An offer, not a command, and something inside him stirred. A flicker of the man who once flew into combat, who trusted wing and sky and teammates. Bring your jacket, she added, smiling. You'll need it. The city still gets cold. The ride to the wildlife center took 3 hours. The desert rolled by in waves of orange and gray. a landscape Elias had lived in for years but never really seen until now. June played music softly, folk, blues, a little jazz, nothing he recognized, but all of it felt like breathing. At the center, Asha was carried inside with quiet reverence. The facility was modern, sunlit corridors, clean enclosures, smells of hay and antiseptic. Staff greeted June with warmth and nodded politely at Elias, sensing his silence was not unkindness, just armor. They placed Asha in a spacious recovery aviary, her final test before release. As the doors closed behind her, she hopped to a perch, fluffed her feathers, and stared out at them through the glass. "She'll be reintroduced in a week," June said. "We do a soft release. Give her the chance to come back if she needs to." Elias nodded. Good. He lingered, watching as Asha flared her wings and glided from one perch to another, flawless and free. June came to stand beside him. "You helped her fly again." Elias didn't answer. Not with words, he just breathed in, long and slow. That night, June offered him a guest room at the center. He declined. "I've got a place," he said. "My cabin's got more holes than walls, but it's home." She nodded, understanding. "Still, maybe you could visit sometime. Help with other birds. We get owls, hawks, even eagles. You've got the hands for it. And the patience." He looked at her. "You think I belong in a place like this? I think you belong anywhere you let yourself be," she replied. He didn't say goodbye to Aisha. Not with words. He simply stood one last time before her aviary, raised a hand in quiet salute, and turned toward the canyon. But something had changed. He wasn't walking back into exile. He was going home. The canyon welcomed him like an old friend, but it no longer felt like a hiding place. The silence was still there, but now it carried a different weight, not emptiness, but reflection. The wind still whispered through the stones, but now Elias heard the music in it, not just the memory. He returned to his routines, chopping wood, mending the greenhouse roof, listening to the low hum of the desert. But everything felt a little different, lighter, sharper, like his senses had returned after a long winter. The photo of his squadron was no longer buried in a drawer. He'd placed it on the mantle. Beside a small carving of a falcon he'd whittled one quiet night with a blunt knife and a bit of cedar. He still woke in the middle of the night sometimes. The ghosts weren't gone, but they no longer screamed, they whispered. And he could bear whispers. About a week after returning, the radio crackled to life. An old ham set he rarely used, dusty and barely functional, but he'd left it on just in case. The voice that came through was grainy but unmistakable. "Elias, it's June. You there?" He snatched up the receiver. "I'm here. She's flying." His breath caught. "She took off this morning, straight up into the thermals." No hesitation. He closed his eyes. A smile, slow and trembling, spread across his face. "She's free," he said. "She is." But she circled back once, just once. Before heading for the cliffs, she said goodbye, maybe, or maybe just see you later. He didn't respond right away. Just held the radio as if holding her voice in his hands. "We've got a few more raptors coming in," June added after a moment. "One's in bad shape, broken leg. We could use your help." He chuckled softly. "I'm not a vet, no, but you are someone who doesn't give up on broken things." He looked out across the canyon. A hawk soared in the distance. Not Asha, he could tell, but still beautiful. "I'll come," he said. "I'll help. Tomorrow?" "Yeah, tomorrow." He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he packed a small bag, a change of clothes, his whittling knife, the photo, the falcon carving. He left the cabin early, while the sun was still stretching its arms across the desert. As he climbed onto his old motorcycle, the engine coughed, then ground to life. He paused once, glancing up at the sky, and there, far above the canyon ridge, a speck soared in lazy circles. Maybe a falcon, maybe not. But he raised a hand anyway. "See you around, Asha." Then he kicked the bike into gear and rode, toward purpose, toward people, toward something like peace. The wildlife center was busier than Elias remembered. Children in sun hats clustered near the outer enclosures, pointing at owls blinking in the midday light. Volunteers moved in and out of the exam room, carrying crates, notebooks, and thermoses of coffee. The place buzzed, not just with noise, but with life. Elias stood on the edge of it all, bag slung over one shoulder, the falcon carving clenched in one hand. His boots crunched on gravel as he approached the main entrance. June met him outside, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then it broke into a grin. "You came," she said. "You called." She led him to the back where the recovery wing sat in gentle shade. A new raptor lay in a padded enclosure. Young, probably a red-tailed hawk, its feathers ragged, one leg bent at an awkward angle. "He's scared," June said. "Won't let anyone near him, snaps at everything." "I know the type," Elias muttered. She raised an eyebrow. "Bird or man?" "Both." He approached the crate slowly, crouched beside it, and locked eyes with the hawk. The bird's breathing was fast, erratic. Its body tensed as Elias reached a hand forward. Not to touch, but to simply be seen. "Easy," he murmured. "Not here to hurt you." The hawk hissed, but didn't lunge. "That's something," June said softly. Elias stayed there for nearly an hour. Didn't speak much, just kept still, letting the hawk get used to him. When it finally stopped hissing and turned its head away, he allowed himself a breath of relief. "He's not ready yet," Elias said, standing. "But he will be. You're a natural. I'm just patient." June watched him carefully. "You've changed." He looked around. The center, the people, the sky. "No," he said. "I just came back." She smiled at that. Not because it was poetic, but because it was true. Over the next few weeks, Elias became a fixture at the center, not an employee, not quite a volunteer, just present. He cleaned enclosures, repaired fencing, fed injured birds. He even helped with transport runs, driving crates of tiny owlets or half-healed kestrels to and from the local vet. Some had broken wings, others perfect feathers. He left them around the center, on shelves, windowsills, beside water dishes. Quiet totems, markers of hope. One morning as he poured coffee into a mug now permanently labeled Flyboy, June approached with a clipboard and a slow, teasing smile. "She's back," she said. Elias froze. "Asha?" She returned to one of the soft release towers, just perched on the edge for a bit, watched us working. Then flew off again. He exhaled, still watching, still remembering. They stood there for a long time, no words needed. Then June added quietly, "Some of the kids are doing a school visit next week. We're setting up a storytelling session about the birds we've rescued. Want to tell them about Asha?" Elias looked at her, uncertain. "I'm not much of a storyteller," she shrugged. "You don't need to be. Just tell them what she meant to you." He thought of the day she crash-landed on his porch. The storm, the silence, the broken wing. Then he thought of the sky. "I'll think about it," he said. But in his heart, he already knew the answer. The children sat cross-legged in a half-moon, their eyes wide, their chatter quieting as Elias stepped forward. He stood beneath a large cottonwood tree on the edge of the Wildlife Center's demonstration area. A few hawks perched nearby, rescued birds too injured to return to the wild, now living with calm dignity in their enclosures. Elias cleared his throat. He hadn't spoken to a crowd, let alone kids, in over a decade. His hands were rough, his voice gravel, and his heart beat like he was about to fly into combat. But when he spoke, it came gently. "She came to me in a storm," he began. Wounded, scared, too proud to ask for help. The children leaned in, their teachers quietly nodding, June standing off to the side with a hand on the hawk enclosure. "I didn't think I could help. I didn't think I should help. I lived out in the desert for a reason. But when I looked in her eyes, I saw myself." He paused. "She didn't ask to be saved. She just wanted a chance to heal. So I gave her that." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the carving, a perfect miniature falcon, wings outstretched. "This is her," he said. "Her name was Asha. It means hope." A small girl raised her hand. "Did she ever come back?" Elias smiled. "She did. Not to stay. Just to remind me that she hadn't forgotten." Another child asked, "Were you sad when she left?" He nodded. "Yeah, but also proud because I got to see her fly again." June stepped forward and placed a real falcon glove on Elias's arm. "I think they'd like to meet one of Asha's kind." she said with a grin. One of the birds, light and lean, with a piercing gaze, was placed gently on his gloved arm. It wasn't Asha, but for a moment Elias could pretend. The falcon looked at him, and he saw something ancient in its eyes, something untamed and free. Later that evening, as the children loaded onto their buses and the sun fell behind the ridges, Elias sat alone near the enclosure. June joined him with 2 mugs of tea. "You told her story well," she said. He shook his head. "It wasn't just hers." "No," she agreed. "It was yours too." They watched the horizon in silence. Above them a falcon appeared, just a silhouette, wings stretched wide, catching the golden light. Elias stood slowly, shielding his eyes. June smiled. "Think that's her?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, almost to himself, "I don't need to know for sure." And he meant it. Some stories don't need endings, just flight.